plans with our mission to keep people in their homes. We have 66 people that we successfully kept in their homes from code violations from the city of Sedalia, because we aggressively knocked down people's homes and displaced them. So our mission was, we don't charge anybody anything. If you qualify, we're gonna fix your house. We're not gonna charge you anything. So that burden we took from you. So leading me to this position to want to run, it all ties into that. I'm a firm believer that we shouldn't displace people. Totally against it. We have so many agencies that we can guide somebody to. If you have a $200 water bill, they'll cut your services off because they know you can't pay it. You have to charge $40 to get it back on. When we could just say, hey, United Way will help you with that bill. So let's give you time to work on getting that accomplished, right? Before we shut your services off. We get paid, right? And we don't inconvenience anybody. If we run across code violations, we have agencies, helping hands. And I'm not trying to promote what we've done in this community, but it's a fact. We can keep you in your home. So instead of slamming them with those citations and violations, give them an opportunity to figure out a plan to stay in their home. Because I'm firmly against that. We're investing so much money in our parks, and we're not utilizing them. We used to have tournaments at Paul Clover Soccer Association years ago. I'll give you a prime example of something. The Show Me Games has a $1.4 million budget. Their annual income from those events for the 2 weekends that they host, $10 million. If we can do something similar to that. And they're expanding the road out to Cloverdale Park. So it's very possible. We have 11 fields we can play on. We can bring competitive sports here. Charge teams to compete in this town. Utilize those parks and football fields. We've invested in football fields, So we need to take advantage of this. Harvard Park, they have some of the best looking basketball courts. We can have competitions out there and generate wealth in this town. We're helping the business owners who have hotels. If you own a restaurant, you're facilitating, that too. Because if you're here for the weekend, you're gonna stay somewhere. You're gonna spend your money in this town to eat the food, right? So we're helping everybody by bringing youth sports here. Another problem that I've noticed too, in 20 years of working there, I've worked 7 years on the street side. I've done 7 years sanitation front and back. I was in charge of brush for multiple years. I ran compost for a number of years too, and I did 2 years working for concrete. So there's not too many parts that I haven't worked at, City of Sedalia. In the last 4 years, it's the worst it's ever been ran as far as streets. And we bragged about, if you looked at the article of our current city administrator, he said we're doing 4 miles of streets a year, 4 miles. The problem I have with that is, we have over 140 miles in the city of Sedalia. 140. It would take 35 years to do those streets. Why we do the 4 miles 35 years later, most of us probably won't even be here, right? Those streets are getting damaged and they're in bad shape again. We were doing 70 streets a year between chip sealing, resurfacing the ones that needed it, patch, a micro paver, and a garbage truck. By 3 months in, we couldn't afford to buy a chainsaw blade for the brush crew because we blew our entire budget on vehicles. So if you're wondering why your streets aren't being done, we just paid $750,000, almost $750,000 for a police vehicle. Police vehicle. We have 5 employees making over $100,000 a year. And then we have a city administrator who doesn't meet any other qualifications and doesn't even live in town, making almost $170,000 a year. But we have employees that are making $15.25, and if you're operator 1, you're making $16.75. But then they told us we can't find money for you guys to have better health insurance because we have $3,000 co-pays to go to the emergency room. But we're spending $500,000 on positions that were created. and they don't have money for their employees. 2% of what they're paying 5 people, $10,000 in taxes. Who pays that tax money? We pay that tax money for positions that never existed. A size 4 municipality, and it goes like this: the mayor, your city council, which makes no money. You have your city administrator, your HR director, a public work director. We eliminated a public work director and created 4 positions and paid 4 people over $120,000 a year. Instead of having 1 public work director to do all that work. Then we're gonna have a safety coordinator position that pays $160,000, because when Calvin Shaw left the city, they kept his salary open so they could move the HR director into that position to pay her what Calvin Shaw made, and then they're gonna have another person making over $120,000 in HR. That's your tax money. 148 hours or 180 hours of video training, and it qualifies a person to run a whole street department. I don't even know what Daniel's title is, but he's over 2 deputy fire chiefs. We're wasting so much money where it can be diverted other places. We have 126 properties that we're maintaining, that the city took down. And that's after getting rid of about 30 of them. We're not developing them. We're not doing anything with those properties. But we're spending our resources to maintain them. If we have 4 people maintaining those properties, you're paying an hourly wage for all 4 people, right? Fuel. And on top of the fuel, we're wasting on that too. When the equipment is damaged, who's replacing that? I mean, the homeowner's not, because it's not their property, it's our property. We need to develop that. Because if we bring people here, then companies will follow. When we increase our numbers, then we're desirable for some of these big companies that might want to build in Sedalia, right? Then another thing too, instead of wasting our resources maintaining the property, we inherit a taxpayer who's going to generate taxes for us for years. And property taxes, sales taxes, when they go to the grocery store or whatever the case might be, they're spending those resources here. We're generating that money. We're building wealth. We're not losing it by wasting it, you know? We need a more inefficient way of doing these streets. The micropaver is not it. If it's costing us 3 times as much to work it, why wouldn't we just go back to the way we were doing? We were averaging 70 streets a year. We're doing 4 miles a year. We have 258 streets in the city of Sedalia. If you do the math, 70 streets. In our lifetime, we would have hit every street in this town. Why aren't we using the patch truck? We're running cold mix. You know what happens with cold mix? If you ever laid a roof, you lay it in the summertime because the tar in the back lays down and it adheses better. Cold mix, as soon as you drop the plow, you're rolling that stuff right back out. So we're losing our ground on that, right? We're not generating anything. We just created a hole again. The point of the chip sealing, when we see a street spidering, you put that oil base in there and you press that rock to prevent ice going in there and expanding and retracting, right? That's what generates your potholes. Because those big squares that it's generating from those micro cracks, year after year, you're riding over and it's rolling that street out. So we chip seal to preserve those streets until we can come back and ask for them properly. We're not doing that. We're spending money on sidewalks in neighborhoods we're not even having houses and properties on. But we have so many damaged and broken sidewalks in the city today. Why aren't we trying to fix those first? Budget that. Use that infrastructure for positive changes. Things that aren't trip hazards. We're not doing that. I can't tell you a neighborhood in this town that has old sidewalks that aren't busted out. Why aren't we focusing on fixing those first before we build new ones? In neighborhoods that have blank properties, who's benefiting from that sidewalk? Nobody. But if you live on Grand, Lamine, or any of these other streets, and you use those sidewalks every day, you have to walk on a trip hazard. It makes no sense to me. Why aren't we reinvesting that? Water department has a idea of all the lines that are busted or have the potential to bust. The clay pipes for the sewer, everything. We should use that money and resources to develop a plan to fix that stuff, to be proactive instead of reactive. So when you see those guys working 12 hours, 13 hours trying to fix those water leaks, we knew they were problems. Why aren't we trying to fix them before they become problems? Because we're wasting too much money on vehicles and employee salaries. But we're paying $500,000 for 5 people. There's still another 250 people that's not accounted for. So 2% across, let's do the math. Who eats that cost? We do. We eliminate those positions. We spread that wealth to the people to make competitive wages. Guess what happens? You don't raise your taxes because the money's already there. The resource is right there. We need to focus our infrastructure on things like our streets, on our employees. It makes no sense to pay these guys to get their CDL. And once they get their CDL, make $16.25 or $16.75. When anybody will pay you $2,800 a week to drive a truck. So we just paid you, trained you to leave because we don't have competitive wages. But we're paying $500,000 and 5 people's salary that positions never existed before. And that's not even to talk about lobbers. Who has an attorney and don't put a cap on their spending fees? It's an open checkbook. So every question that's asked, they're charging them. And if we had a qualified city administrator, our bills wouldn't be so high. Because he wouldn't have to refer to lobbers every time he had a question about what he can do legally in the city of Sedalia, because he would have all his accreditations. And he would already went to school for that, and he'd be qualified not to do that. We've never paid these fees for attorneys, ever, until we went away from qualified applicants in positions. Calvin Shaw did it, and cost us a lot of money with lobbers, and Matt's doing the same thing. If we didn't want Calvin Shaw, why we want 2.0? Who trained him? So everybody was so upset about Calvin Shaw's job, but we just slipped in the next guy he trained. And he's making $170,000 and doesn't have any of the certifications to do so. He doesn't have anything with public knowledge as far as the degrees necessary to have that position. Must live in city limits. Must have a political science degree or a degree in public works from an accredited college. And he has to have a business degree. He has a criminal justice degree. None of those qualify to do the position he's doing, to make $170,000. It's your money. That's your money. That's our money. The bad thing about it all, everybody in those positions, none of them live in city limits, but they drive a city vehicle home every day with a gas tank. Leaving city limits with city vehicles that the city of Sedalia, you bought. They're driving Maplewood, all these other places. I think Matt lives in Smithton. He's using your resources to go back and forth. That's your fuel money. That's your, if a truck breaks down as a city vehicle and it's in Maplewood, who pays it? We do. We pay for that. Tire blowout, he could be driving it recreationally on a weekend. We don't know what he's doing with that city vehicle. Something happened with the axle, who pays for it? We pay it. We pay it. Compost. Nathan just pulled up. We can be profiting from that. We have people that can buy our recycle instead of sending it to the landfill and them charging us for it. We can sell the wood chips. We can sell the dirt. There's a lot of things that can make money off that. We're spending so much money to grind up all the wood, that could be a self-sustaining entity. And it wouldn't cost any of us any money to maintain it. So why aren't we doing it now? There's a lot of things I just don't understand. In the 20 years being there, we went so far away from our mission, our goal. They're bragging about minor, many little small things. Who brags about promoting 5 people to make $500,000 and say it was in the best interest of you guys? Who bragged about that? Who brags about 4 miles of roads per year when we have 140 miles in this town? They did. They wrote it up in the paper. You can read it. Because they think people are so stupid in this town that they'll believe that that's in your best interest. And I know this because they do it to the employees too. Oh, you guys are doing such a great job. Keep up those 4 miles a year. And we have people that are there 42 years who can drive down the street and tell you what's wrong with the street. And they haven't reduced to driving a dump truck. They won't even ask him how things were done because it has to be done that guy's way. And we notice, because if you look at the timeline from how things used to be done to what we're experiencing now, it all makes sense. And they brag about it in the newspaper. That big decline happened when they started making all these position changes. And we've noticed how horrible our streets are, your services. Look at the trash cans. That was a disaster. Who spends his entire overtime budget, emergency resource budget, on mandatory 10-hour days for the entire month of October, when you have 48 employees? So now, if we had a horrible winter storm, we had to steal from another department to pay for the overtime funds so they can plow your streets. And we're still delivering trash cans. Makes no sense to me. Why was it so urgent to deliver them, and we're still delivering them to this day, that you blow your entire overtime budget on delivering trash carts? I can't figure it out myself. And at the time, we have trash trucks. They pick up those cans every week. Have a trailer full of them. Tag the cans dead. Don't waste those resources. Deliver them at that time. Have a list. But they didn't have no plan. No nothing. We just went out there and run and gunned it. And prayed that everything will get done, and it hasn't. We're still delivering containers. After blowing his entire overtime budget. I mean, and this is what we want another 4 years of? It's ridiculous. I work there and I can't believe the stuff that goes on. Blows my mind. So, but that's all I have. If anyone has any questions, if you're willing to answer.
I wonder what you can do, if anything, about where some of these intersections in like 11th and Carr, whatever, where there's big dips, especially down 14th Street. If there's anything that can be done just at those intersections.
Of course. We don't need that much of a grade to do so.
Yeah. So that would be an easy fix.
Yeah. But I'll tell you guys another plan that I would love to have. I want to have complete community involvement. I want to also promote everybody from every ward, have some representation from every ward, so that you guys can be the voice of your community. So we can eliminate some of this disruption at the council, because we're going to know those answers before we even get there, because we're going to lean on you to make your community better. Because if anybody knows anything about anything I've ever been a part of, I'm 100% community involvement. I'm going to lean on everybody here to help make our community better. Because I think it's important to have input. I think it's important for you guys to tell us how you want your city to be ran. It is. I mean, we're public works. We're supposed to serve you all, not the opposite. We need a board of advisors so we can eliminate all the waste that the city is spending. go through all the salaries, cut all the unnecessary positions, and delegate that money to the people who are deserving to have competitive wages, better health insurance, better working conditions. That's first and foremost. That's the first thing that needs to go. It's all these inflated, made up positions so we can make it competitive. So when we pay for your CDL, you want to stay. You want to look at those benefits. We want to make it competitive so you don't want to go somewhere else to make more money. And you can actually put your family on your health insurance, you know? Because at this point, we're not doing that. We're just taking care of our friends and families, but we're forgetting the 250 people that we're responsible for. So we need to change that too. And I'm 100%, and I want whoever feels that they want to represent their ward to reach out to me. My number is public, because this is how I want to build our communities. By internal help, by leaning on people that we respect, we like in our community, so they can be the voice of our community. And I would listen. I would show up at your house and help whatever way I can help. I've always been that guy. I spend my Saturdays working on people's houses. So I have no problem listening to your concerns and really trying to work at making it better for all of us. Because I live here too. I don't get in my car and drive out of town and come back here. I live with the same consequences you all live with because of the bad decisions the city's making. So I want all of us to be involved in making our community better, because I believe in it. I truly do. With Helping Hands, I never expected as many volunteers to show up. We had hundreds of volunteers in the time we ran this program to show up. So I believe in this community because I know what it's capable of doing. I've seen it personally, that I know we come together when we really need to come together. So I know that we can make Sedalia better for ourselves and stop relying on Sedalia to make BS rules and laws and stuff that puts you farther behind. We can build houses, and if these other programs work, they can support not raising any of your taxes, because we'll be generating wealth from some of the other programs like the youth sports and things like that. So we build, your property values go up. If you qualify income-wise, we're not gonna raise your rent. We're not gonna increase your taxes. We're not gonna do any of that stuff, because we can draw that money from other entities. But we have to be profitable. We have to put plans in motion that we can do that. It's possible to have growth and not increase your taxes. I've studied this stuff for months. I know it's possible because I've seen models in other cities. They're doing the exact same thing. Why can't we do it here? Because they're too lazy to do the research and work on themselves. But I go back to the question real quick, because I know we have other candidates. Go ahead.
I like your idea of a board of advisory.
So we have people on the stream that can you come up here, can't have the mic in here.
Wow.
Sorry.
I like your idea about the board of advisory. Can you as mayor do that by yourself, or do you have to have council approval?
Oh, listen, as individuals, and here's the thing, we all know that we can't rely on our council. I mean, they restricted your speech. So we take it upon ourselves to do some of these things. And I'm spearheaded. But here's the thing, we can put pressure on them to do the right thing by showing them that this is waste. That camera's running, right? So when we go to the council meeting, I'm gonna say roll call. Now you voice your opinion why you're against it. And you're cutting everybody in Sedalia's throat.
And they will.
And you know what? Then that's your way of saying, and this is why we wanna have our committees. And I'm leaning on the community to develop these committees. Because if you represent your ward, then you're that next guy sitting on that seat. And they know, they trust and believe in you because they're already going to you with their concerns. And when it's time, you'll get your 25 signatures. And you'll have your ward's support. And if they don't want to do right by you, then you represent your ward.
Okay, then I suggest one thing, when you are elected,
First thing, agenda, is to change that crappy thing where we can only talk 3 minutes on the agenda, and we can talk about what we wanna talk about, what our problems are.
Let me tell you something, if you met me, I'll talk to you for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm firmly against not, you know, letting people speak.
Well, I'm mouthy.
I don't have a problem with that.
Mr. Williams, if you are elected mayor, can we have, I talk loud.
I have people on the stream, they can't hear you though. Sorry, guys.
I'm stubborn. Mr. Williams, if you get elected mayor, can we count on you to make it a priority that we get a decent legal firm, someone from here in town? Can we get out of that contract with law firm? I think we had a shot across the bow here recently from our own governor of our state. The attorney that was representing Sedalia is now gonna work a judgeship.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I've spoken to you before.
And you heard what my concerns are with that.
Yes, okay,
Yep.
and I
So-
wanna know if that'll be a priority. And also, I just wanna make a comment, I did some research. The United States Senator, average pay per year is $170,000. That's a United States Senator. Think about what we're paying these other people, all right? And one of these gentlemen was just appointed to a made-up position at the Buffalo Hospital, okay? He's getting $89,000 a year. The majority of RN nurses do not make $89,000 a year. The people that take care of you, the ones that are there when you're dying and the family members are there.
And tell the name of the person who went over there.
I believe his name is Calvin Shaw.
So you see what's wrong with the city of Sedalia?
And I
You
want-
see how it's just one big circle?
And I want to thank you. I'm an old disabled nurse after 36 years. And I was given a house by a friend to live in, and she passed away. And I was one of those people that were evicted by the code enforcement. And it was Helping Hands that came with Judge Beard and helped put up new guttering on the side of my home. All right? And my next door neighbors paid for a brand new roof. So, and it came on Christmas Eve. So there are good people here in Sedalia. But I believe, like what they're telling you, it's up to you and I. You know, we can make phone calls to our board representatives. That's our job, to do that. I mean, when I grew up, they were called aldermen, right? And everybody knew everybody and everybody knew everybody. Okay, we do that. And that's the one thing we can do that they can't stop us from. And they'll irritate them, but then they'll know that we're paying attention. And then they'll have to suit up and show up. Okay, that's just my 2 cents. So,
And that's why I want to form those committees, so we can put that pressure on them. If they don't want to answer their phones, and they don't want to listen to you, and you represent your ward, then now we have a replacement for them. So that's the purpose of having some of these committees. We don't have to pass everything through the city council. We can do it as individuals, just like with Helping Hands. We went from 2 guys to 14 members.